Wisconsin voters are likely feeling an extra sense of pressure when it comes to casting their ballots. Many political analysts believe it will come down to our state next month, meaning the candidate who wins Wisconsin will win the election, with our state still considered a toss-up. Over the next 3 weeks, the Trump and Biden campaigns will be trying to win over last-minute voters, including Black Wisconsinites. Mr. Claude Gilmore is back with us this morning to talk about some of the biggest issues for Black Americans on the ballot this year. Good morning, Mr. Gilmore.
Good morning.
So I just want to start with exactly that. What is the role of Black Madisonians this election?
Well, first, let me offer my deepest sympathy to those who've lost their lives during this pandemic. And we know that a large number of them are Black and brown and indigenous people. So my heart goes out to them. The role of Black Americans that are playing in this election is directly tied to what's at stake in this election and what's on the ballot. As you might know, one of the important things in voting is the people that are in elected positions. And one of the things this year across the country, we have 14 Black men and women who are mayors of large major cities where elections occur, like Atlanta, D.C., Chicago, Charlotte, Denver, and New Orleans. And that makes a difference. Secondly, since the pandemic, before the pandemic started, the disparities between Blacks and whites in income, health, education, jobs, and housing, as well as the vestiges of institutional systemic racism, was already present. But the pandemic has exacerbated them, all of these factors during this situation, and it's made it much worse. So let's talk about what is on the ballot. One of the things on the ballot that's most critical to us is the Affordable Care Act. Affordable Care Act provides health insurance for more than 20 million Americans, and especially for us who are persons of color and have pre-existing conditions. This is critical. The irony is that this is on the ballot because of the Supreme Court will be having a hearing on this, and the new Supreme Court justice, if it's as conservative, may make this particular act potentially to be removed, and that would impact so many lives of so many people, especially African Americans.
Mr. Gilmore, I want to jump in really quick asking about health care. We have a great health care system here in Madison, so folks who have health care might not be focused that much on this issue. What are you hearing from Black Madisonians in particular about lack of access?
Well, that's always been a problem. Before we had the Affordable Care Act, everything's tied to you being employed. But Affordable Care Act allowed people who, provided a mechanism so that people could be put on the insurance that they could not before. Because pre-existing conditions is the key of how you get insurance. And the concern is that because we, persons of color, have so much issues and health issues because of access, this insurance is critical because not everyone is employed and have adequate health insurance through their employer.
Especially right now with more and more people being unemployed. I know another important thing on the ballot will be in terms of how different candidates are dealing with racial equity and inequalities within our justice system and just within our communities too. What is exactly on the ballot in terms of that?
Well, there are critical things on the ballot in terms of that. One of the areas of concern, obviously, has been the issue of police brutality and the continued killing of Black men and women who, just because they happen to be Black or be in a situation that they have been treated differently by law enforcement, and unfortunately, many of them have been killed. That has been going on too long in history and continues now, as you know, from the continued protests regarding George Floyd and others who have unfortunately been killed. So that is on the ballot because that has to change, because we need some changes in how we do policing around this whole country.
Mr. Gilmore, final question.
Ahead.
Do you have any concerns about getting Black voters to the polls this election, safety-wise?
Well, I think that because of the pandemic, we have a great amount of aggressive effort in the Urban League, the Black churches, and the communities are really working to get people out to vote, and especially early voting. so that we don't end up in that situation where people have to be in line to face some of the risk factors regarding the pandemic. I do want to say that there are other things related to this around jobs being on the ballot, because the unemployment rate for blacks during this pandemic is 12.1% in the country, and it's 7% for whites. And that impact has been significantly impacted on African Americans. The job loss has been unfortunately so high because they are usually the last hired and the first to let go. And that impacts on how they take care of their families.
Mr.
So
Gilmore,
this is
there
a
are certainly
very critical election.
Yes, it is critical for all of us. So do your research. Both the Biden and Trump campaigns have their plans outlined on their own websites. So do your research before you either send in your ballot or head actually out on Election Day itself. Mr. Gilmore, thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about this important topic.
You're welcome.